The town of Delphi, Indiana, represents something profoundly special in the American psyche. It's not just another small town on the map. It's the very embodiment of heartland values and community spirit. This is the kind of place where generations of families put down roots and never leave, where high school sports events bring the entire population together on Friday nights, and where people still believe in looking out for one another. The sort of community where crime statistics typically mean nothing more serious than teenage mischief or the occasional petty theft. A place built on mutual trust and shared values that have become increasingly rare in modern America. February, in Delphi, typically means gray skies, barren trees, and a quiet anticipation of spring's arrival. The Monon High Bridge area, with its historic railroad trestle spanning Deer Creek, has long been a favorite gathering spot for local youth. Generations of teenagers have explored those woods, shared secrets on that bridge, and carved their initials into nearby trees. There's a timeless quality to the place that makes it feel both ancient and familiar. On February 13, 2017, the world was still normal for best friends, Libby German and Abby Williams. They were typical teenagers, Libby, the more outgoing of the two, and Abby, her quieter but equally bright companion. With an unexpected day off from school, they decided to make the most of their freedom. The plan was simple: hike the trails, take some photos, and enjoy the unseasonably mild weather. They were just being kids, completely unaware that their ordinary afternoon would become the defining tragedy of their community. The first signs that something was wrong emerged slowly. When the girls didn't return home, concerned family members began making calls. What began as mild worry quickly escalated into full-blown panic as the afternoon light faded into evening. The community's response was immediate and overwhelming. Neighbors, teachers, classmates, and complete strangers joined the search effort. The woods that had once been a place of recreation and adventure suddenly became terrifying and ominous. As hours turned into days, the search expanded from a local effort to a massive operation involving state police, FBI agents, and volunteer search teams from across the region. The entire nation watched anxiously, hoping for a miracle. The discovery of the girls' bodies sent shockwaves through the community that reverberated across the country. This wasn't just a local tragedy anymore. It had become a national nightmare that would haunt the American consciousness for years to come. In the devastating aftermath of the discovery, investigators faced what seemed like an impossible task. The crime scene yielded few obvious clues, and the rural location provided no convenient witnesses or surveillance footage. The case might have gone cold immediately if not for one crucial piece of evidence that demonstrated incredible presence of mind from one of the victims. Unbeknownst to the killer, Libby German had the foresight to record video on her smartphone, capturing what would become the investigation's most valuable and most frustrating evidence. The footage is chilling in its ordinariness at first. The shaky video shows nothing particularly remarkable, just trails, trees, and the wooden planks of the historic bridge. Then comes the figure, a man walking along the tracks. The video quality is poor, the distance too great to make out clear features, but the figure moves with purpose. Then the audio, 3 simple words delivered in a calm, commanding tone. "Guys, down the hill." The matter-of-fact delivery is what makes it so terrifying. There's no rage, no panic, just cold instruction. Law enforcement made the strategic decision to release portions of this evidence to the public, creating the bridge guy phenomenon that would dominate true crime discussions for years. The image of the man in blue jeans and a blue jacket became instantly recognizable, burned into the public consciousness. The FBI launched one of its most extensive tip campaigns, receiving tens of thousands of leads from across the country and around the world. Online, the case took on a life of its own. Amateur sleuths created elaborate theories, analyzed every pixel of the released footage, and accused numerous individuals based on the slimmest of evidence. Social media platforms became both an asset and a hindrance to the investigation. While they helped maintain public interest and potentially reached someone who might recognize the suspect, they also spawned countless false accusations and conspiracy theories that complicated the official investigation. For the investigative team, each promising lead that dissolved into nothingness represented another emotional setback. The case became a puzzle with missing pieces, a riddle that seemed to defy solving. The frustration grew with each passing year as the technology improved. But the breakthrough remained elusive. The man on the bridge had seemingly vanished into thin air, leaving behind a trail of grief and unanswered questions that stretched from Delphi to the farthest corners of the internet. The break in the case, when it finally came in October 2022, arrived not with a dramatic raid or cross-country chase, but through methodical police work that had been continuing behind the scenes for nearly 6 years. The arrest of Richard Allen, a 50-year-old local resident and CVS pharmacy technician, sent shockwaves through the community and the nation. The revelation was stunning not because of who he was, but precisely because of who he wasn't. Allen represented the ultimate paradox. He wasn't a shadowy stranger or a known criminal. He was someone deeply embedded in the ordinary fabric of daily life in Delphi. This was the man who might have filled your prescription, who you might have made small talk with about the weather while waiting for your medications. He attended local events, shopped at the same grocery stores, and blended into the community so completely that his arrest felt like a violation of the community's basic sense of security. The psychological impact on the community cannot be overstated. The arrest created a peculiar form of collective trauma, the realization that the monster might not have been hiding in the shadows after all, but moving among them in plain sight. Neighbors struggled to reconcile their ordinary interactions with Allen with the horrific crimes he was accused of committing. The case became a terrifying lesson in how little we might truly know about the people we see every day. For the families of the victims, the arrest brought mixed emotions: relief that someone had finally been charged, but also the reopening of wounds that had barely begun to heal. The road to justice promised to be long and painful, with the legal process just beginning. For investigators, the arrest validated years of painstaking work, but also opened a new chapter of challenges as they prepared to present their case in court. The media frenzy that followed the arrest was unprecedented for a small Indiana town. News crews descended on Delphi, and the case once again captured national attention. But this time the questions were different. Not who did it, but how could it be him? And how did he evade detection for so long? The ordinary nature of the suspect made the crime somehow more terrifying than if it had been committed by an obvious monster. As the case moved toward trial, what had seemed like a straightforward prosecution quickly evolved into one of the most complex and unusual legal battles in recent memory. The defense team mounted an aggressive strategy that challenged both the evidence and the very integrity of the investigation. Their claims created a narrative so dramatic that it sometimes seemed better suited to a legal thriller than a real courtroom. The defense's allegations about Richard Allen's treatment in prison raised serious questions about the conditions of his confinement and their impact on his mental state. According to court filings, Allen's psychological condition had deteriorated so significantly that his ability to participate in his own defense was compromised. These claims prompted multiple hearings and extensive testimony from mental health professionals, creating delays and complicating the path to trial. More startling were the defense's allegations about alternative suspects and possible ritualistic elements to the crime. The defense pointed toward other individuals, suggesting connections to pagan beliefs and occult practices that might explain the circumstances of the murders. These theories, while dismissed by prosecutors as baseless distractions, captured public imagination and added layers of complexity to an already complicated case. The prosecution's case, while still not fully public, appears to rest on several key pillars. The unspent round found near the victims' bodies, allegedly matching a firearm in Allen's possession, represents crucial physical evidence linking him to the crime scene. The significance of this evidence cannot be overstated. In a case with no eyewitnesses and limited physical evidence, such a connection could prove decisive. Perhaps even more compelling are the alleged confessions Allen made while incarcerated. According to court documents, Allen made multiple incriminating statements to both his wife and his mother during phone conversations from prison. The defense has moved to suppress these statements, arguing that Allen's compromised mental state rendered them unreliable. This legal battle over the admissibility of these statements represents one of the trial's most critical preliminary fights. The competing narratives presented a stark choice for potential jurors: Either believe that investigators had identified the right man, with ballistic evidence and confessions to support their case, or accept the defense's position that the true perpetrators remained at large while an innocent man's mental health deteriorated in prison. This fundamental conflict would define the trial and determine its outcome. The Delphi murder trial represents far more than just another criminal case on the docket. It stands as a profound test of multiple American institutions simultaneously: our justice system, our media landscape, and our collective ability to seek truth in an era of rampant speculation and misinformation. For the families of Libby German and Abby Williams, the trial represents the end of a nearly decade-long journey through unimaginable grief and public scrutiny. Their loss has been compounded by the torturous length of the investigation and the painful details that have emerged along the way. Their quest for justice has been conducted in the full glare of media attention, denying them the privacy that most grieving families can expect. The community of Delphi itself stands at a crossroads. The trial's outcome will either provide a measure of closure or extend the community's trauma indefinitely. Either way, the town's identity has been permanently altered by the events of February 2017. The peaceful small-town image has been replaced in the public consciousness by association with a horrific crime, and the trial represents an opportunity to begin reclaiming the community's narrative. Beyond these immediate concerns, the case raises broader questions about the American justice system's ability to handle high-profile cases in the digital age. The extensive pretrial publicity, the proliferation of online theories, and the intense public interest create unprecedented challenges for ensuring a fair trial. The judge's decisions about what evidence to admit, what arguments to allow, and how to manage the jury will be studied for years as precedent for how courts can adapt to modern media environments. The role of true crime enthusiasts and online investigators also comes under scrutiny in this case. While public interest has undoubtedly helped maintain pressure on law enforcement, the proliferation of false accusations and conspiracy theories has caused real harm to innocent individuals and complicated the official investigation. The Delphi case may ultimately serve as a cautionary tale about the limits of amateur investigation and the importance of allowing professional law enforcement to conduct their work. As the trial progresses, several critical questions remain unanswered. Will the jury see the same case that the prosecution has built? Will the defense's alternative theories create reasonable doubt? How will the court balance the need for transparency with the need to protect the integrity of the judicial process? And perhaps most importantly, will the outcome provide the closure that the families and community so desperately need? These questions will only be answered through the slow, meticulous process of trial testimony and evidence presentation. What remains certain is that the nation will be watching, and the implications of this case will extend far beyond the courtroom in Delphi, Indiana.